Welcome to the Balancing Ambitions podcast. I'm your host, Kim Menapace. You are not alone in your pursuit to balance family life, work, side hustles, and taking care of yourself. Balance is not easy to achieve by any means, but we can all work to get better at it together by sharing our stories, tips, and wisdom. Let's dive into this week's episode. I am super happy to have Angie Wisdom on the podcast today. Angie is someone who I'm admired from afar for a couple of years now, since I first got exposed to her at STR WealthCon 2024, and then she presented to a smaller group that I'm a part of last fall. So Angie is a author, a coach, a mom of two, a wife, and just a kick-ass businesswoman that I've admired so much and have learned a lot from both her content and more recently her book, which really further emphasize some of the lessons she taught in a workshop that I attended. So I think you're in for a real treat with this conversation, and I'm so excited to introduce Angie Wisdom to you. It's been about a year maybe since I last saw you in person, so it's been nice to stay in touch with you since then virtually, but welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Kim. I love the way you show up online and everything that you are inspiring people to do. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, me too. I am so excited because there's a lot of different things I'd love to cover, going back to your earlier career in finance and investments, and then all more recently where you're doing coaching, a lot of coaching, and even your most recent book that I just finished reading. I'm actually using those tactics, and this morning was doing my journaling at 6 a.m. this morning with kids running around just to help center myself going into my day. So yeah, there's so much I can't wait to unpack. But let's start at the beginning of your journey and
Yeah.
what you first started doing in your career.
I started in the banking industry really young, believe it or not. I did like a work program in high school. So I was a bank teller at 16, and it just kind of like kept me in that financial space. So I moved on to lending and then ended up going into financial advising with Morgan Stanley. And I think I just thought that was the place for me because I'd started in kind of the money space so early. But I soon found out, working in that industry, that I wanted to have a different impact on people. I thought that helping them make money and investing for their future and their retirement was it. But I found out that I really, really like to impact people from a personal growth and development standpoint, from allowing them to have the power to change what they want in their lives. The markets are unpredictable. So it was, odds were not in my favor, right? To control the markets and make people money. So I wanted to step into a place where I could have a bigger impact.
I love that. But I have a question for you on
Yeah.
is there an intersection between those two? Because I think about planning for your future and retirement investing, other types of investments, without the picture of where people want to go and what they value in life and what are the elements of retired life that they see for themselves, you can't get there. And I think that helps influence. So you almost were working on a small slice that intersects, I think, with personal coaching and development and growth and people's values and really
For
excavating
sure.
how do we get at those.
Yeah, you're spot on, and I always say that I was a coach before I was a coach, before I even knew I was a coach, because when I sat down with people, if they were individuals, it was always talking about, well, what do they want? You're talking about risk tolerance in the market, right? How much are they willing to risk for what do they want to gain? That brings up all sorts of fears and past stories and beliefs. So a lot of my job was extracting that information, understanding either their desire to go all out and risk everything and understanding that, or their desire to stay super super conservative at a really young age. So dissecting all of that and getting them on the right path, it really was coaching. And again, understanding, creating that vision. It's hard when you're working with somebody who's 30, 35 and you're talking about retirement. They're like, what? Kids college education, and they're like, we don't even have kids yet. So a lot of it is that vision work, pulling apart the stories. And then from a business perspective, my business clients that were, investing as well, and we were looking at their financials, it was the same thing, right? We are talking about, well, what's your vision for your company? How many employees do you want to have? What kind of revenue do you want to make? So yes, before I was even a coach, all of those questions were in my everyday work.
I love that, and I'm not surprised by that. I think about these friends of ours that are not investors. They're both teachers, and we had recommended this book, "Smart Couples Finish Rich," and it's about some of these foundational principles about asking,
Hmm.
"What do you want your future to look like? What are your values? What's your paradigm?" And in the book, there's an anecdote of this couple that was close to retirement, I think in their 60s, and they asked the financial advisor asked the husband and wife, "What do you want to do for retirement?" And the husband said, "I want to go to our fishing cabin 3 hours away and spend all my time there." And the wife said, "I thought you forgot about that house. I can't wait to sell that thing. I want to go to the ocean." So there was this huge divide between their visions of what retirement looked like. And so we remember sharing that book with our friends, and they did read it and they said, "Oh, that was really helpful to think about."
Mhm.
And the other comment I said to them was a quote from Grant Cardone, which love him, hate him. I think this is a really good piece of food for thought. He said that people spend more time planning a birthday party than they do planning their lives. And this friend
Mhm.
started laughing and said, "I just spent so many hours planning a bachelorette party." And you're right, people don't take the same time to ask those questions about their life or their business's vision, their strategy, because we get so stuck in the hamster wheel.
It's true, and it's not always easy, right? You take like a birthday party or an event. There's a very defined time frame, right? An agenda, an end goal that you want to get to that feels very, very controllable. So, the quote, yes, it's very, very true. But like when you start looking at what do you even want 3 years, 5 years, 30 years down the road, it's bigger, it's a bigger amount of time than our minds can even comprehend. And there's all these steps in between, right, that have to occur. So your mind starts solving for so many unknowns. And that can be really challenging for people, which is why great questions and, the reflection helps so much.
Awesome. Let's fast forward to present
Yeah.
day coaching. And yeah, how do you help people unpack those things? Like you said, it can be hard. There's more of a defined time period around an event like that, and helping people create those milestones and moments. And how do you break that down with what you do today?
First and foremost, we have to understand what our values are. And you probably know that from reading the book, or you maybe even knew that before. But that is one of the foundational pieces that I work on with my clients in the beginning, because they really become like your compass. If you know what is important to you in your life, if you know what fills you up, what brings you joy, what you want to say yes to versus, all the other things that we say yes to automatically, if you understand that, that gives us the pieces to put together the future. And so once you start doing that, and you're like, gosh, what does bring me joy? What would I like to have in my life every single day? Then, as you look 3 years out, 5 years out, whatever it may be, we have this inside knowledge of, well, I really love time freedom. Well, I really love to be challenged. I like to travel. I like to be out in nature, whatever it may be. You have these pieces in front of you. So then it just becomes kind of like architecting them, right? To go, well, how often do you want them in? And what would that look like? So it gives people a big jump into that space where maybe this just big blank vision before felt a little big and scary. When you have your values, you can put those pieces together. But that's a foundational piece. And then a lot of things click together. My main objective is I have always believed that we are capable of whatever we want and that we should get to live life the way we want to and live it to the fullest. So much of that comes back to the mindset and the belief system and what you said early, paradigms that have been ingrained in our minds over the years, and we can talk all about those, that really give people this misconception that they don't have as much control over their lives or what they want to create.
It's so true, and I think we alluded to this, that you got to lead me and others through a workshop where we unpacked all of this in our values, and we also went
Yeah.
deep on enneagrams, which was exciting. I don't think we'll touch on that too much here, but I think that just reading the non-negotiable you book, it was so cool to see it as that workshop in a written form where people can follow along. It has that mindset and the tactical all there, so it's like going through a workshop where you said, "Don't rush it, don't jump to chapter 8," which is
Hmm.
the daily ritual, putting all these things into place. We really wanna build to that and go through the layers of unpacking the values, the places where you have a victim mentality, where some of those examples, I didn't even recognize it as being in the victim mentality, but I was. If you say, "I didn't work out this morning because my kid woke up 3 times, and so I was really tired." I chose to sleep in to get that type of self-care and health benefit over working out. That was a conscious choice versus that victim
Yes.
mentality. So same example, same outcome, but a totally different mindset and different language to approach that. And so that's what I thought was really cool when I got to read this. It was like a refresher of some of these workshops I've been able to be privy to, you both at the STR Wealth Conference back in, what was it, 2024?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was 2024.
Yes,
Yeah.
and, you know, the late winter, early spring 2024, and
Yes.
then when I saw you last fall. So that was really cool to have this as a great refresher this week.
Mm. I'm so glad you got to dig in. I love that example you brought up around the victim mentality and taking responsibility, because I think it just, like you said, and I was the same way, and I think most people are, it's not like we're intentionally making an excuse, but it rolls off our tongue so easily to say, like, oh, well, I couldn't do this because of that. And we don't understand that language puts us at a deficit with our self trust. It's kind of like, oh, I said I was going to do this, but now there's this reason that didn't allow me to do it. So when we look at building internal self worth, self trust, self love, the confidence, those words are so important, because when we choose, and we all have that right. Like, I am not somebody who's like, you just have to do it regardless. You go sick, you desert your kids, whatever. If we just change that language to say, yeah, I'm choosing to, it gives us such an elevation of that self-love and self-trust, which is just crucial in leading yourself in what you want.
Mhm, and having that top of mind as you enter your day, and today I set my intentions, and
Yeah.
it's interesting where some of the values you might not, if you are asked to list them out on a worksheet, you might actually not have some of these pop up, but then when you look at reflection, or you said, I think it's your at the end of a day, what made you feel happy
Mhm.
and joyful, or what are some of your fondest memories, I actually see different values and different elements popping up there, like nature, for example. So I sat down today and realized I have a lot of meetings and catch up from travel, and I wouldn't have time out in nature. So I actually set an intention to walk outside today, and we're actually going to walk to pick up our kids at daycare. And if I hadn't thought of that value and thought of how to interlace it into my day, because originally I thought, oh man, I have a packed day, victim mentality, can't fit this in like
Yeah.
I normally would want to, then I just wouldn't have even saw that opportunity. But if I say, hey, I can actually end my day here instead of here, and then I can get a 20-minute walk in, and the kids will get a walk in on the way home too. And so just having that help these little minute decisions and baby steps. I heard somewhere we do 30,000 decisions a day or something like that, crazy like
Yeah.
that. But all of those can, like you said, be a compass to help us be more in alignment with our values. And with that, have that self trust, to have that peace and calm. And I loved in the book where you said people ask you, how are you so calm? How are you so peaceful? And I think you've even noted this in the book that that wasn't always the case, but that's something I've
Mm-mm.
noted with my interactions with you, and something I'm seeking with two young kids and a busy life. And so that was really cool to see a lot of those connections come together.
Oh my gosh, you are describing all of this so well. I love how you can articulate the depths of you going, oh, this is what I like. And so here's how I can do that. It's all conscious choices. And you think at the end of the day, like, that might be one of the things that brought you joy, was like, oh, I got to get outside and get that fresh air and got to move for 20 minutes despite everything else that was going on. And that, even if it's short and sweet, even if you only had 5 minutes to walk outside, take a breath, and come back inside, it sends this message, right, to our mind going, you do know what I want. You do care about me. That self love, that self worth, that self trust. So I love the way you're, painting such a clear picture for everybody.
Yeah, you gave so many good examples in the book too. Another one I thought of that you said is these subconscious choices that aren't in alignment with our values, where the classic example is, hey, do you want another drink? Where someone's trying to be kind to you, whether it's a friend going to get it or the bartender, and slowing down to ask yourself, do I actually want that first drink or second drink? And how does that impact tonight and tomorrow and my values and all of those things? Where I didn't have that exact example. Well, I did actually. I had an example where there was a happy hour at the event, and I knew it was in service of me to get my workout in instead. So I chose
Mhm.
to do that instead of the happy hour. But I also had an opportunity to exercise this, people pleaser, recovering people pleaser tendency that I have, where the MC for my particular cohort of the event, they had different tracks for the different disciplines for the people at this conference. And our MC said, "Hey, we have 5 breaks and lunches, and you have to meet 3 new people at every single break. And here are some icebreakers I've seeded for you. I'm going to ask you how many people you met." And it was this telling, you have to do this. And I was recovering from a cold. I traveled across the whole from East Coast to West
Yeah.
Coast to get there. And I knew it was not in service of me to go overextend myself as an introvert and to still be recovering from this cold. So I would take extra breaks for myself and go put on some music and lay down and relax, recharge for a number of reasons. Even if I wasn't sick, I might need that for me energetically. And it was
Mhm.
interesting to notice that I have this, it was really this very strong suggestion. My people pleaser subconscious would have kicked in and said, "Oh, I feel bad and guilty, and I should do what I'm being told, which is at the break, I should go introduce myself to these 3 people and ask these icebreaker questions." But I knew trying to hijack that autopilot and actually saying, "What's best for me?" And it's okay to choose what's best for your self-care, even if it's different than that person's. And what they're trying to get out of today and this conference in the next 2 hours is different than me.
Absolutely. And you said a key word in there. That subconscious thought came up that it was like, I feel, right? That word feel. And that's always what navigates people into choices when they're not using their values. I always say that we can make a choice 2 different ways. We can use our values, which you did, right? Like, I know what's in service to me. I want to get this workout in. I want to get this rest. This is what I value. Or, geez, I feel bad if I'm not participating. I feel like the party pooper. I feel like everyone is going to be mad. All these feelings are fleeting, right? They're part of the environment. They're part of past belief situations. Like they come and they go. Even your example at the bar, right? Like, well, if there's a lot of like fun going on and it's loud and you're having a good time, you might feel like having another drink, but you value a healthy lifestyle or a good night's sleep because you've got something else going on tomorrow. So again, a lot of people don't intentionally just look to their feelings for those. They just don't have anything else to use besides them. And so then when they do their values, they're like, oh, thank goodness now I know how to make my decisions. Because if the majority of people, if you ask them, like people don't usually like decisions. It's like, I hate to make another decision. And it's because it's usually like a crapshoot. When you're making them on your feelings, half the time you might be in alignment with your values and half the time you might not. And then you've got that regret or remorse later, right? Like, I wish I hadn't said yes to that. What was I thinking? I wish I didn't go out. I wish I didn't skip the gym. There's all those I wishes the next day after those decisions that were made with feelings.
Mhm. I find when I have a big goal that's has a time box around it, like running a marathon, or I did bodybuilding shows back in the day, I find it even easier and stronger to just make my decisions based on that goal and that guiding all the
Mhm.
decisions. I think it's harder, it feels harder when it's more your everyday life and there's not this big aggressive push towards something. And I think that's not great. I know some people can be junkies and have to sign up for the next marathon, the next one, because they just don't know how to live life in between and just the everyday. And you can still have aspirational goals for your business, for your life and stuff. But I almost think that that's harder. We're just as a society, it's easier for us to go really hard at a goal like that. And then we just flounder afterwards. So trying to I keep saying the word try, I need to work on that too. I'm surprised you haven't called me out on that.
Well, it's your
You're going
podcast,
easy. You're going on easy on me. Coach
if the
Angie
roles
here.
were reversed.
But, I think that that can be more challenging at times, and that's the part I am training for a marathon, so I guess it's not the best example, but the rest of my life where my workouts are really keyed in on, I adjust when I'm sick, but I'm largely following my plan, but then where there's other types of, I want beautiful relationships with all my family members and stuff, and how do I piece together the steps and the daily intentions that have that beautiful moment, which is present time with my kids, putting my phone away at 5 p.m., for example, things like that that you can do to just help facilitate your everyday life without these really intense goals that make it very easy. But it's this roller coaster effect of the being keyed in on that and how the
Mhm.
decisions every day are really easy, and then people flounder when they don't have an intense goal like that.
Right, right. And it's this shift from goal oriented to lifestyle.
Mhm.
It's a shift from performing to living and being, right? Oftentimes when we have that goal, it's like, okay, well, I have to do this because then it will mean this certain thing and I'll get this certain thing, or I won't be good if I don't do it. So there's like consequences, there's rewards, and it's very much a performance thing. I love goals, nothing wrong with goals. But we need to look at our life as a whole of like, well, what's that vision? Like, what's my North Star? Your values fall into that, just the way you want to live, and start incorporating that as like, and if I just constantly live in alignment with what I want in my life, it's almost as this life goal. In alignment with that, I'll make decisions like that all the time. And it won't be these sprints where I have to do something to get something. I get to be present with my kids. I get to eat healthy. I get to work out every single day because, I'm making these choices that align with my life vision. And I think that's really crucial for people because you're spot on. I'll get clients that come to me all the time and they're like, okay, I need something big to go after, and it's like, okay, for what? Well, because, I'm just not very motivated right now and I'm not very driven. And I don't know though. I got the house, I got the car, I got, the boat. Maybe I should start flying. Like they come up with these crazy ideas because it's like, what's going to drive me now? And if we don't have that life vision to live into, that's continually what happens because we get that dopamine, we get that spike, we get that reward from achieving. And I mean, I'll stand on a soapbox for a minute and just say that we've got to shift that mentality from achieving all the time to being. You can achieve far more and accomplish far more and be so much more impactful if you show up and you're in a state of being that's in alignment with that.
You actually started to answer my next question, which is why
Oh,
do people seek you out? What are examples? These are
yeah.
successful people already. Why are they coming to you? What can you help them with coaching?
I mean, a couple different things. A lot of people come to me because they want that next level. Most businesses will go through seasons and entrepreneurs where you've gotten to a certain point and it has been driven by you and it's everything that you know and it's fantastic. Like you're so proud of where you've gotten, but then you keep hitting your head on the ceiling. And there's this phenomenon that happens that like everything that got you to that point is not going to get you to the next level. So oftentimes my clients come because they're like, I hit the 5 million and I can't get past it. I opened up, my first store, but I can't get beyond that. I've got 10 people, but I can't get to 25. Whatever it may be, it's a scaling thing where they just don't know their next steps. So that's a big piece. The other flip side of it, what I get with people sometimes is they've grown so much and they have created all this amazing business, but they're not happy. They're like, I've done all of this. I thought it would be different. I thought it would give me all these things. And I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I have anxiety and I'm not enjoying any of it. So what's it all for? So those are a lot that come into, my space in my office because they either want to achieve it or they have and it's not what they thought it was. And then near and dear to my heart are the people who maybe haven't even gotten to those levels yet, but that just know they have so much more potential, and we've got to work on the confidence and the self-trust and the self-love because that's where it all starts. You can't go out there and be that impactful person and create those impactful things until you have impacted yourself in a meaningful way.
That was what I was gonna ask you next was the
Yeah.
approach for those 3 different avatars. Is it the same? Is it different? And how is it different?
I believe in two phases of not say coaching, but development. We have the self actualization phase where you have got to be so in tuned and anchored within yourself. So there's even successful people out there that have created really great things, but they're not happy. They haven't found that grounding. They don't have the self love, the self trust, the self worthiness, the confidence, all of that, despite everything they've created. So that can happen whether you've created anything, you're super successful at all. You have to have that self actualization where you're like, this is what I need. This is how I do it for myself. This is how I show up for me. When you get through that, you will hit a benchmark where you're like, I'm good. Like, I don't need anything else for me. I take care of myself every single day. I'm living my best life. And that's when you step into really this, kind of transcendence phase where it's like, how do I help other people? How do I take me and be impactful to everybody else? And that often comes, again, most people who have kind of gotten to a certain level of success because they have that inner work, but now it's just maybe not as fulfilling. We have to be able to make an impact on people to reach our maximum fulfillment. It can't be self serving, but in the beginning, we 100% have to serve ourselves first because there's no way we can show up for other people without us as a whole being. So there's different approaches, but really two kind of phases of development, internal and external.
Interesting. And do you find
Yeah.
that those different avatars we just discussed, people
Mhm.
could be at either of those phases, at any of those avatars? You know, so okay, got it. That now
Yeah.
it's clicking for me there, where someone could be trying to get from one store to 5 stores, and they're doing a good job with self-care, or you could have someone who's not. And so you're just gonna begin where that person's at and then move them along the development spectrum from there.
You got it. And you could have somebody who has a little side hustle and they've done so much inner work, right? And it doesn't mean that they've had to, everyone defines success in a different way, right? So you could have this $100,000 business, have done all this personal development, are completely happy internally and going, what else? And that's when you're picking up on that, self transcendence phase and starting to work externally. Whereas you could have a $50 million CEO who has gritted and grinded his way all the way to the top, totally without himself. It's crazy. I mean, that's the way I was in the financial industry. I succeeded in spite of myself. I was not working with myself. I was working against myself. I didn't lean into my values. I was inauthentic, like all the things that you read about in that first book. I was not showing up that way, but you can still create success despite of that, but it's not going to go all the way to your full potential and it's not going to be fulfilling.
I was going to ask how you were and how you showed up before you had a pivotal change for yourself with this, because you talk about being a few
Yeah.
years into your career, successful, and not feeling like this was it. So yeah, can you tell us more about that Angie back then in, your early 20s?
Yeah, well, it's so funny. I'll tell you about Angela, okay? Because I literally posted my old business card the other day. I was cleaning
I
some
saw
stuff out and I
that.
found, did you see it? And it was my Morgan Stanley Dean Witter card. This was back from like 1997, 98. And I posted in it, said Angela Wisdom. And somebody commented and they said, Angela, who's Angela? And I was like, well, Angela was the person I thought I needed to be in order to get the clients to grow my business. I showed up as whoever I needed to be in front of anyone. It doesn't mean that I was ill intended or I wasn't genuine with them, but I was like, wow, if I need to pretend like I am like this super smart college graduate, if I need to pretend like I am this, I just molded, I call it kind of the chameleon technique, right? Where you just change to be whoever you needed to be. So I was totally different, and hence the name Angela because it sounded more professional, Never had I ever gone by Angela before. So, I had that going on. Again, created great success with it, top of my class, loved my clients, they loved me, but it it didn't feel good. Every day I was crossing days off of my calendar and I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, why do I feel like I'm serving a prison sentence? I liked my work, but it felt like I couldn't wait to end the day. I felt like I couldn't wait till the weekend came, until a vacation came, because I was showing up as someone else, because I was constantly pleasing everybody. I didn't know my values. I didn't have my values. My husband was one of the first people who said to me, you need to find your thing. And I'm like, what do you mean my thing? He's like, the stuff that makes you happy. I'm like, oh, when you're happy, I'm happy. When everyone else is happy, I'm happy. That's my thing. And he's like, yeah, no, you need a better thing, as he's walking out the door to go surfing. So I was the opposite of everything in that book, Kim,
We're most
which
equipped
is
to help people with the thing that we've conquered, something
for
that we've
sure.
moved the needle on immensely.
Yes, yeah. And again, it's always so interesting. Like you can be missing all that and be successful, which is why it can be such a trap. And so then when people go to change these things, it's almost like, well, wait a minute. I've created this much success people pleasing. I've created this much success acting like I'm somebody else. So it becomes really hard to give that up because the brain automatically goes, well, if I do the opposite, I'm not going to get the reward. I'm not going to bring in clients if I start being myself. I'm not going to bring in clients if I stop people pleasing. So it's a dangerous trap to get into.
And you actually brought up two things that I did not
Ooh.
expect to be reminded of. One was when I entered the corporate world, I started to go by Kimberly. It didn't stick because I didn't respond to it when people would say it. So my last name before I got married was Marchand, so it was another M name. And so I thought saying Kim Marchand was a little bit of a mouthful. So I said, oh, I'll just say I'm Kimberly Marchand, Kimberly now Menopause. I didn't know I'd be marrying Dave Menopause at
Uh-huh.
the time, but it did not stick and people were confused and they're saying, are you Kim or Kimberly? And I always went by Kim, but I thought leaving college, entering the corporate world where I have a business card with my name on it and I have to introduce myself, I thought I'd start going by Kimberly, and it was very short-lived. And it was that finding my footing, finding my place, finding my confidence. And then the other one that you reminded me of was countdowns. So for a different thing where it wasn't these countdowns to vacations and stuff per se, but I remember for my bodybuilding shows, for pregnancy, always the first thing in the day, I'd be checking my countdown. How many more days do I have left to being pregnant? How many more days left until that show? And I noticed in the last couple of years, I wasn't doing that anymore. And it was actually a good thing. I couldn't put my finger on
Mhm.
why, but I didn't love being pregnant. I'll admit that. I know some women love it. I did not love it. I was not a big fan of being pregnant, but I just had this hanging in there to the next big milestone instead
Mhm.
of appreciating the blessing of just today. I just was struggling with that. And some of these countdowns were very long. And I would just and I'd have a list of the countdowns, this till this date, this till this date, this milestone. And I noticed that a couple of years later, I just wasn't having those. And I knew it was a good thing, but I couldn't put my finger on why it was a good thing.
And you just figured it out, right? Because think of that, you know what I mean? If we're so excited to be through another day, what does that say about our mentality about what we're approaching or what we're trying to achieve and how we're enjoying it? And the journey is just everything. I know it gets overused, right? Like enjoy the journey, the joy is in the journey, all of that. But it's so, so true. I mean, if we could all shift our focus from the finish line to the journey, your finish line would be far bigger and more exciting than ever before, but we focus on that finish line and then it's just like, oh, okay. Oh, there you go. That was good. You know what I mean? Like it's usually very uneventful. And instantly you're like, what's next? I had a client, she was like, oh, I'm so excited. I finished this triathlon and she did all these things. And she was like, but you know what? The first thing I did afterwards was like, okay, what's next? And there wasn't any of this reflection. There wasn't any joy along the way to really celebrate and just find that present, fulfillment.
Mhm. And I think about that, not even that finish line of that next milestone like we talked about, but even people live for the weekend or they're
Mhm.
planning for retirement. When I
Yeah,
retire, then I'll travel, then I'll play tennis every day, then I'll do this. And that's something I've been mulling over this week with reading your book and other things going on is thinking, what are those elements of a weekend of retirement that we think we have to put off that reward for? And how can I integrate them now in your just
right.
day-to-day life? And I think that the retirement one's harder for people to wrap their head around maybe, but the weekends, oh, I can't wait. Then I can spend more time outside or I get to do this or that. And that's a indication that you could bring that value forward. And how would you show up
Absolutely.
and do your work if you got that in daily? And
Mhm.
that's something have been noodling on and recognizing and thinking about as Dave and I spent a lot of time in Cape Cod this summer. And Dave, my husband, is an entrepreneur, as you know, and his ratio of working to kind of recreation and self-care is totally flipped from a few years ago. And even my son thinks he's retired. He doesn't think daddy works. And he's like, why are you working so much? Why do you go to the office? So it's very fun. Even for the sign for his first day of school last year, my children for what they wanted to be when they grow up, Logan said retired and my daughter said big. She was 2 at the time. And
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
and so everyone thought it was so funny. This year, they wanted to be a firefighter for my daughter and a truck driver for my son. So we've pivoted a little bit to very different careers or aspirations when they're older, but it was so cool that he thinks that, and I infused a lot of those elements. I was down at the Cape as much as I could. I have a hybrid work schedule, and we just were having fun. We usually rent that house, but we didn't rent it. So we figured out financially how to just have it be our house for the summer. And we're there every weekend saying no to other events closer to our primary house and saying, hey, no, we can't make it to that pool party. Hey, Logan's not going to be at that birthday party, because we really wanted the 10 weeks of the summer to be in Cape Cod and that retirement feel. And I said to Dave, it's this pinch me moment where I said, we're living like retired people, hanging out in Cape Cod as much as we can at 37. Like, we should give ourselves a pat on the back, because that was not our reality a few years ago. And we didn't even let ourselves entertain it being our reality back then, because we didn't know it was possible.
I love that story. And you're, again, so spot on with going, how do we bring these values forward? Many people figure out that their values are in moments like that, especially vacations. Well, and they love vacations, they think, because they're on vacation, but they love vacations because they got their values in. Because by default, there was just time to do the things that you wanted to do. And our mindsets are so programmed to be like, oh, well, when you're back to reality, it's all work. And I literally posted a story on this yesterday about people think that values are like luxury. Well, if there's extra time, then I'll get them in, or I just don't have time for them, or you get them when you've completed everything. But it's just so the complete opposite. And I wanted to ask you, for Dave, like, did his results suffer from him kind of flip-flopping? They went up. Yes, exactly. And that's like, it gave me goosebumps when you said that, because I was like, dear God, I hope that she's in alignment here. But
That's the answer I was looking for.
whoo, but no, that's always how it is in all my years of coaching. It's like when people have that trust and go, okay, I'm betting on this. I'm going to give myself my values. I'm going to live like I'm retired now and still work, obviously. Your results go up, because you just get so focused, you get more fulfilled. You're working for something different, right? It's hard to work for something years down the road. It's much easier to work for something right here and now. So I love that you guys have embraced that. That puts a big
Yes, we
smile on my
have.
face.
So walk
Yes.
us through what you do actually in a day, now in this, years later from your big pivot,
hmm
from recognizing that you were not happy in the banking and financial world because you wanted to help really affect people's personal lives in a much bigger way. So yeah, what does, Angie do to start her day?
My mornings they're so the same for so many years now. It's so funny. My husband and I were even laughing about our breakfast this morning. I'm like, we're acting like we're 80 years old the way we eat the same breakfast every morning. But I love an early morning. Never was an early morning person, because I didn't love the morning that I woke up to. But once I started crafting it the way I wanted to, love it. So I start at 4:15. I go straight into a hypnosis, and then I go into my morning mindset journal, and then I go to my workout, and then I walk my dogs, and all of that's done by like 7:30, and then I get to start my day. But if in that time with my morning mindset journal and hypnosis, I'm getting alone time, I'm getting my spirituality, my devotionals in there. My morning mindset journal has prompts around mindset and, prayer and all of that. So I'm getting that personal growth and development. I'm getting peace and tranquility. Then I'm going to move my body. So before I even come home to walk the dogs, I've had like 5 of my values show up. Then I get out in nature. There's 6, right? And then I come into work and I get the challenge of helping people every day. There's 7. So I structure mine so I very front load my day with my values, so that when I get, especially in what I do, because when I get here, I want to have nothing but space for my clients. And when you get your values and you create that, because then you're not yearning for something, you don't feel incomplete. Your focus is super dialed in. So I front load mine, and then I stay with my clients throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, I get more time outside in nature, whether I'm going out to the beach for a walk or dipping in the ocean, and then having time with my husband. My kids are in college now, but cooking again, it's something I gave up because I was like, there's clients to help, there's work to do, but cooking was actually a big value of mine. And I kind of pawned it off and got rid of it because it was like, oh no, more success, more success. So even getting back to something like that.
And I also like, I don't think I'm misspeaking here when I say this, that you're still experimenting where you started, I said, dipping in the ocean every day too, right? Did you post
Yeah.
about that recently? So you're
Yes.
tweaking things and optimizing and trying new things, even if you've had a very strong and sound routine for a lot of time.
Absolutely. And my values haven't shifted. Values can absolutely shift, especially when you go through big life changes, career changes, kids, spouses, things like that. So your values can 100% shift. And that's why I love the reflection at the end of the journal when you're like, what brought me joy? Because you'll find like, "Oh, wow, that might be new for me, and find out a new value. But the whole dipping in the ocean thing was just like I felt when you're so in tune with yourself, and I'm sure you can relate to this. When you're so in tune with yourself, you trust yourself and you know yourself. We have this very heightened sense of awareness, which I think is the biggest gift in the world. For anyone listening, starting a practice of self awareness is huge. So it's like if you know yourself that well, you feel these little things and you're like, something's a little off. I'm just not as connected. I'm not as grounded. Like I'm not firing on all cylinders, which is still really, really good. But you just feel the littlest things that are off. And that's when you're like, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? And you listen to yourself versus falling into some of that victim mentality or maybe doing something else to mask it.
And I think that in reading this recently, I had strong self awareness in certain areas and then total
Hmm.
blind spots in other areas. So I would say I was naturally a pretty self aware person and controlling that to have my patience for my kids and stuff. But then I had these complete blind spots more, I'd say, in business, maybe, or that victim
Yeah.
mentality around shifts in my schedule with the realities of motherhood. And so I didn't recognize that, and I've been peeling back those layers for the last
Mhm.
couple years to really acknowledge that. So it's interesting. You can have self-awareness, but you might not have it completely in the
Right.
360-degree view of yourself. And so being able to open your eyes to that and really be open-minded that you might have blind spots, and to try to get at those blind spots in some way, whether it's a worksheet or reflection or journaling or reflecting on why am I off and what can I do to change that, and really unpacking that. Even Dave, the what was it, the couple days ago, he was saying he we were talking while I was in California. And he said, I feel off and I couldn't figure out why. He called me back a couple minutes later and he said he realized it was someone who he had sent some messages to and they hadn't gone back to him. And I'm the same way where if I fire off an email, I think it's play a game of tennis. It's in your court now and it's going to come back when it's ready. And I don't like to have to follow up and say, hey, I sent this a week ago. Can we follow up on my life insurance policy increase or something? And so I think that that's what was going on for him. And he couldn't figure it out, but he was able to figure it out within a couple minutes and call me back and say it was nothing related to me, but he was just happy that he figured out what felt off to him. So I think when you
Right.
really start using those tools more, you're more able to quickly diagnose that and get back in alignment quicker.
It's so true. And I will tell you, you're talking about blind spots here. The self awareness that people usually have is the self awareness that involves other people because there's a higher level of care and worry and concern, typically for most people, right? You worry about what people think, you worry about what they perceive, and all of that. So you can have this heightened sense of self awareness, like you're talking about, like with your kids or something, or your patients. Most people, because we haven't done that internal work yet, they ignore anything that's directly related to them. I'm fine. Just suffer through it. Like I'll deal with it. I'll cope. Like because there isn't this, hey, I'm really important and I need to tune into myself. We sacrifice that a lot. And so that's usually the blind spots that people are missing. And so my favorite way to even work on that is just simply ask yourself that first journal prompt every day. Even if you're not doing the journal, right? How do I feel? And what do I want to do about it? Like if you just start asking yourself multiple times throughout the day, how do I feel? I feel kind of tired. I feel grouchy. I feel this. Just acknowledge the feeling and you'll start to go, oh, do I want to feel that way? What do I want different? But just that simple question. And you think about like, how many times does anybody, right, really ask themselves, how do I feel? We don't, we just accept it. You just end up going, oh, I'm so tired. so this, so that we just claim it. We don't acknowledge it as awareness and something to do about it. It's just like been pinned on us. And then you're stuck with it versus going, well, I feel this way. So it gives you the opportunity to do something about it. So anyone that's listening, just start asking yourself that question.
You're spot on. I had to be hyper aware of other people growing up in a house with I'm one of 7 people. My grandmother lived with
Hmm.
me. I'm one of 4 kids, and then we had a dog, so it was a very packed house, and so I became acutely aware of impacting everyone else and people's feelings, and I my
Hmm.
empathy, I think my mom really, sharpened that skill for me, and I think it can also go too far where you have the people pleaser tendency, the martyr tendency. And so that's something I'm still unraveling from the last couple of years is not having that martyrdom. And to your point about the how do I feel and what can I do about it? I think what's important is to write it down, acknowledge it, even if it seems scary or you think you'll be judged for it or you'll judge yourself for it. So in doing
Yeah.
that, I used to be involved in Dave's business. And when I started to unpack this and actually truly ask myself how I felt, what I enjoyed doing, what I didn't enjoy doing, what would my ideal day be? I found that it wasn't doing the stuff I was helping with. I felt like I was doing that just out of necessity to be a trooper.
Hmm.
And when we were going to hire more people, I really wanted to hire out all that stuff and start working out again, sleep 8 hours a night again. And
Yeah.
that was scary to admit to myself at first, and then it was scary to vocalize that, thinking about hurting people's feelings, and I think what you even say in the book is that I don't think you use this terminology, but that fear of criticism is so
Hmm.
innate in all of us, and it's something I struggle with, and having the tact on how you deliver it is so important. You doesn't mean you don't say your truth, though. I think that's
Right.
super important. Even if you're afraid people are gonna criticize you, being not true to yourself is more of a crime than it is to offend someone else or have them critique you or judge you.
It is, it is. It's like that lack of loyalty is like dishonoring to yourself. And it's so damaging for anything that you want in your life. So we have to protect that at all costs. And, the interesting thing is that that worry about the judgment or the criticism or whatever may be out there, when you are anchored with yourself, when you truly value who you are and you have that self worth and self love, that becomes, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but you care less about that, right? Because you are able to go, you know what? I love myself unconditionally. I know my worth. I know my value, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. People are going to get upset. People aren't going to like things. I mean, you and I are both like that, right? We don't love everything that everybody says. There's nothing wrong with it, but without that internal anchor, it's near impossible to let go of that because what else are you anchored to then? Most of the time, you and I both as people pleasers, recovering people pleasers, that was what we had to do. We were anchored in somebody else's feelings. So our job was we've got to make them feel a certain way in order to feel that way for us. But when again, you can have your own feelings internally for yourself, then you're like, snip, you can cut that cord and you're no longer anchored to everyone else, which is just so, so freeing.
It's so true. And I think about how there's what, 7, 8 billion people on the planet. And we talked about paradigms earlier and how energetically and values wise and all this, you're gonna jive and orbit well with some people and you're not going to with others. And
Mhm.
that's normal. That's just energy and life and science and stuff, and so
Yeah.
but then we have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves that everyone has to like us or can never hurt someone's feelings because we spoke our truth about, "Hey, I don't wanna go to that happy hour," or, "I don't wanna go to dinner that night. I need to have some time for myself or with my husband," and it's so interesting. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth with that. I think that
Right.
when I thought about that just more macro in the universe, that makes sense that I'm gonna really jive with some, I'm gonna do okay and average jiving with some people, and then I'm gonna totally be repelled and say, "Yeah, they're not my cup of tea, and that's okay," or "I'm not their cup of tea," and it doesn't devalue my self-worth or make me a bad person. And being more okay with that is something that I've been working on with the recovering people pleaser martyrdom and all that stuff. But it was cool to think about it through that lens for myself this week.
Mhm. It is. That's a big win there for sure. And I like to tell people too, like, don't think about it as you. Think about it as, people say like, "Oh, I'm afraid he won't like me." If somebody doesn't, it's not you they don't like, right? They may not like your opinion. They may not like your answer. They may not like your choice. They may not like your value selection. They're not liking a particular thing. It's not you as a human. And when you can separate that a little bit, it doesn't feel like such a personal, like, "Oh, I'm not liked." No, he just doesn't like that you want to go at 2 and he wants to go at 5. Like, he doesn't like your choice. He doesn't like your answer. No big deal. You don't like answers and choices too sometimes. We all have opinions and we all have choices. So that can really, really help anyone, who has that people pleaser mentality is it's not you, it's a choice or a value or something like that that they have a disagreement with or an attachment to.
Yeah, misalignment with I love that. It just adds
Yeah.
that touching lightly and just so those layers to us and to
Yeah.
that dynamic between 2 people. I like that a lot.
Right, right. So
I know
good.
we're wrapping up here, so I want to see if there's
Yeah.
any final parting words of advice or anything that you wanted to share with the listeners.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I want to empower everyone to know that your values, like I already said, your values are just they're key. They are the supplements that will give you a good life. And you had them in your life before we all had them as kids. And then we just kind of like let them go because we think that responsibility trumps our values, but it's the complete opposite. Our values will allow us to take responsibility for what we want. So I would say know your values. Can feel free to share like the values assessment in the notes. And also just, that you can choose your thoughts. You have the ability to control your mind. There's just so much amazing work we can do that brings joy and fulfillment to our lives. And we all deserve it. We all really, really deserve it. So take one little nugget from this conversation and act on it because knowing is one thing, but living in it and using it is a whole nother.
So true. You actually remind me of when I was putting my
Yeah.
daughter to sleep last night. She had run down the hallway and hit her toe on the door frame, and so the toenail is dark, and I think she really
Oh,
bruised it and stuff. And she's okay; it's recovering. It's been about a week, but she was pointing to it and asking questions, and I said, "Your body knows how to heal itself,
yes.
but our minds they do, but they need help and tools and workshops and reading and stuff because we can do the same thing and influence the mind can influence the mind and the body. But I
Mhm.
think that's where you need those external resources, awarenesses, coaching, reading, etc., because we just don't have all the blueprints already here or to activate them, I guess, is more the thing. But
Yeah.
that was an interesting awareness I had in telling her, when you sleep, your body does a lot of recovery. It heals that bruise of yours that you had from the playground, that, running into the door frame. But I had this epiphany about your mind, and that in order to cure that, something feels lacking and missing in my life. And I have everything on paper, yet I'm so unhappy. We
Right.
don't typically know where to start, but it's not far behind and it is unlocked in your brain. You just need to know the right tools to help bring it out for you.
It's so true, and I have to throw something on that because I love that you brought this up. The body's job is to heal, right? Like, it does that without even thinking. Your brain's job and your mind's job is to keep you safe, and so that's oftentimes why people don't step out to do the work. They don't make the change because we're just wired to be like, "Safety, safety, safety," and oftentimes that is just staying exactly where you are, whether you like it or you don't. It feels safer than doing something different. So, in theory, right, the brain is doing what it's supposed to do, but we have to get in there and go, you know what, this is safe too. Like, we can actually move. This is not danger. And you have to be so involved in the conversations that, with your thoughts in order to move that needle.
It's so true. I love that we ended on
Yeah.
that note. Thank you so much. Where can people find you, Angie, if they want
Yeah.
to look into coaching with you, your book, anything?
Absolutely. AngieWisdom.com, not a super common name. So you'll find me out there if you put Angie Wisdom in anywhere. Most of my content goes on Instagram. So you see, whether I do free challenges and all sorts of stuff there if you want that kind of content, or the website has the book, has the journal. Amazon also has the book. So anywhere you look up Angie Wisdom, you'll find me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was such a lovely conversation. It's always so great to connect with you. And oh, this was fabulous. I can't wait to share it with the listeners.
Thanks for having me, Kim. It was good to be with you.
As always, if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review, because when you leave a review or share an episode, you make it easier for someone else to find us and benefit from these stories and tips we share. There is a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Thank you all for listening to the Balancing Ambitions podcast, and have a beautiful day.